Welcome, and this is Stephen Diedricks from Taxile here on Radio Kidnappers with another edition of Money Talks. Today we've got a great privilege of having Tony Henderson-Newport with us. Before we go there, again, a great heartfelt thanks and gratitude goes out to Ken and his team here at Radio Kidnappers and all our sponsors. Because without our sponsors, this show and other shows wouldn't be there. So, many of you may have heard the last show where I spoke about different ways to earn income, the advantages and disadvantages of generating different sorts of income, such as establishing your businesses. And one of the things we spoke about was having that training and community there to support you as you go through the establishment phase. So, to mention, we have Tony here, and it's a great honor, and Tony's going to share some great thoughts and experiences he has. Tony's Kiwi to the bone. He, like many Kiwis, he spent some time in the UK and Europe, and while there he established a consulting firm where he worked with Vodacom and Deutsche Telekom, and they, as you know, two major global businesses, and his role was in the IT space, and it included project management and portfolio management. So those are great roles. But Tony, not just that, Tony's even spoken at Westminster, and that came about with his work with the different CEOs. So that should tell us that we're in an esteemed company. And in addition to that, Tony also did some fundraising work with charities, and that led him to attend the British Prime Minister's residence at 10 Downing Street. So he's not only dealing with CEOs but hobnobbing with the people that can make it happen. But Tony's not just a businessman; he's a poet of Semaine, I hope I pronounced it right, and it's an interesting name because it's based on a chameleon that changes its spots depending on its environment. And for those of us in business, and especially new to business, that's an important key in knowing when to and how to change your spots as things go. So that's why we have Tony here. So Tony, welcome. And,
thank you.
Great. So can you just tell us first, just one of the things that you like looking at is what makes Kiwis tick. So can you tell us about that, and also a bit about your work in the UK and Europe?
Sure thing. What I noticed about the Kiwi DNA, I've always been fascinated, even when I was living in the UK, I would be wearing a New Zealand scarf, I'd be being a Kiwi, making sure that my accent stayed intact. And the opportunity, though, in our DNA is, I think, inherently number 8 fencing wire. We have this ability since our early pioneers to have this mettle, this grit about being tenacious and taking an idea and doing something with it. And then if that doesn't work, pivoting, changing direction and finding a way to make it work. And it doesn't matter whether that's in the arts, whether it's in sport, it doesn't matter whether you play a violin in the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra. There's also this feeling in business that you want to be better, that you also want to be kind, and you want to make a difference. And all of those things very much make our Kiwi who we are, our persona, our personality. And yet I believe that what underlies it all is this attitude of fairness. And working overseas for almost 14 years, one of the things that I noticed was that people treated us kindly and thought well of us because actually we weren't sharks, we weren't abrasive, we weren't aggressive, we got stuff done, but we did it in a way that was meaningful for the people we were working with. So I think all of that is part of that Kiwi DNA.
Oh, that's good. And yeah, you mentioned fairness and that number 8 wire, going for it. So yeah, with that, in the UK you worked with the
with Vodafone, and also with T-Mobile, which was owned by Deutsche Telekom, and I also worked with a French company called Cegedim. And the interesting thing for me was working in those different countries is being mindful of the personality or the culture of those different countries. And you could say we're in the mothership, the UK, but actually our mothership is New Zealand. What I found also was that each country, and if I use the French as an example, they have a peculiar way of wanting to make sure that their French language is protected, and in the same way they bring that as an approach into a number of other things that they do. So it was an interesting and I guess a learning experience for me, how working with different cultures, you have to be really mindful of what that means. And in our own country, we have our Maori, we have our Pacifica, our heritage is quite rich here. And so I believe that we should pay the same attention to the culture in our own language and not always just focus on what's overseas.
Oh, well said, well said. So just with that and our culture, and so you've actually brought across the Rebel Business School that was started in the UK, and understand that it was started to fill, there was a gap with young people wanting to start businesses and do entrepreneurship and not just learn it in school, but do it in a Kiwi way. And so you obtained that license back in 2016 after you came back. And so what brought you to establishing that, and how exactly does it work?
Let me just start with a beautiful quote that comes from Seneca. So 2,000 years ago, at the time of Christ, there was a Roman philosopher called Seneca, and he said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." And I believe that I bumped into the Rebel Business School, or the pop-up business school as it was then, because I've been working in entrepreneurship for 20 years. And when I went down this Facebook rabbit hole in late 2016 that led me ultimately to the pop-up business school in the UK, I recognised its value, or the potential of its value in New Zealand, only because of all the other stuff that I've been doing over the years of working with large corporates but also starting small businesses. So that Facebook rabbit hole changed everything. The niche really is people who never think they might get a chance. And that is so true in our own country. Quite often our attendees are not graduates of universities. They're solo mums, they're unemployed, and yet they have visions and dreams and deserve a shot. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw what the Pop-Up Business School was doing in the UK, I went, you know what, this is so needed. But the interesting thing was the rabbit hole I went down was a friend of mine's in the UK, Alan, and it turns out that Alan, I never knew this, was a co-founder of the Pop-Up Business School in around 2011, 2012. Right. So the thing about having an idea is, do you do anything with it?
Yes.
And so I picked up the phone within a couple of days after I'd done a bit more research, and then I said, mate, what would it take to get Pop-Up Business School to Aotearoa? And what I didn't know is that they actually, at the same time, were trying to figure out how to get it out of England. So my timing was just spot on. And that led to me going to do the course myself in 2017, because no way I was going to bring something that didn't resonate and I couldn't see the opportunity for it sparking off entrepreneurship in Aotearoa. And 1st of April 2017 we started. That was when we kicked off proper, but we didn't run our first course until October. And that was the Paurua City Council jumped on board.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned your, I guess, it would be typical attendees would be people that didn't finish high school or single parents. So how do they, is there a qualification, a process that they go through, or do they just fill out the form and show up on the day? Or how do you choose these people? Well,
firstly, I believe that they bump into the Rebel Business School as it is now and go, man, I so want to start a business. And COVID has changed everything as well. And we ask a couple of questions, and somebody goes, I'm a bit of a data nerd, so I've been collecting data on our participants and their business growth since day one. Yep. And so what we've found is that people find us as opposed to we find them. Yep. We just want them to come and learn all the micro-credentials there are around starting a business, and to do that for free. So that our attendees not normally university graduates. 70% of our attendees are women, and a large number are unemployed. But they still have a dream or a vision, and that's why I believe in what we do.
Yep.
Because we're not high growth, high tech, but some of our attendees may be there sometime. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is that quite often tradies, hairdressers are not the demographic that gets supported by government funding for starting a business. And so, again, we're working with a group of people who have a vision and a dream and want that to come to life. Our job is to spark that vision or dream and give the confidence and the capability and actually work with their passion, but give them loads of practicality so that their belief in what they can do is well-founded.
Right. And then when you, when they come in and you sit down and you work with them, what sort of things that you do, and at what point do you get to you are bringing again that number 8 wiring of Kiwis in that, as you know, with starting up your own business too, and there's that client, you get in the work, and all of a sudden it's not there, and digging yourself up. At what point do you deal with that, and what else do you do with them when they go, okay, yep, I'm coming to do your course?
So we run over 10 days. We run 20 workshops. We have a trade show where we do where our attendees validate their business, their concept, their idea. We have a celebration event. And we're really important to mention that we don't leave our attendees alone. After the course, they fold into our alumni or our graduate program. One of our team looks after that, Azu, and she manages the alumni program, which is now, we've just ticked over 1,000 small businesses that have attended our business schools in different parts of the country, and we've now run 24 of those events.
Okay. And do they have a mentor, a personal mentor as well, or do they just tap into the alumni as they go? Because there's lots of things that pop up in business that one just doesn't learn as you going through the course, and that's just life.
Well, the interesting thing is you'd be surprised how many people start their businesses during the course. You'd be surprised how many people build their websites and publish them during the course. And because those are the two of the core elements, if you like.
Yep.
We go through building a website, and the following week we talk about search engine optimization, because we believe that you are much stronger as a business owner if you understand some of the dynamics of being in business. And one of those things is, how do you front? We talk about social media, pitching and presenting, compliance, sales as opposed to marketing. They're all different, but they're like a big jigsaw. In the entrepreneur world, we have a thing called the business model canvas, and that was designed by a guy called Alexander Osterweiler. His business is Strategizer in Europe and Switzerland, and that was mid-2000s. Interestingly, he published that as a Creative Commons license, so anybody can go and create that. But what's important about it is that, and we talk about this in the course, one of our classes is completely focused on this, because you start to see the jigsaw of your business. What is your customer segment? What is the persona of your customer? What is the value proposition? What is your product or your service, and how does that bump into the customer? But importantly, the supplier. How does the supplier feed into your product or service? And then where are your costs and where are your revenue items? And if you imagine that some of this stuff, I was pitch coached for Victoria University for their master's course in innovation, and also on their bootcamp, VicLink. And the interesting thing is that the business model canvas is core to university programs. And yet here we are running a program where we give that knowledge for free.
Yes.
We give that knowledge for free. And the important thing is people start to join the dots, the various jigsaw pieces of the business, so that it comes together in a really meaningful way, but something that they can work with.
Oh, well, that's very good, yeah. So what type of businesses have been established over your time that you've seen? Like, where do people lean to?
So that's a really good question, and it's a raft, but let me give you a few. In our first event in Kapiti, Hilary Tucson had a ice cream business.
Yeah.
And so she was had a factory in Tawa, just north of Wellington, and now she has a shop on Left Bank off Cuba Street in Wellington that sells not only ice cream but coffee, and she has a growing number of staff for the factory and for the shop that she does in Cuba Street. Or Michele Pasu, who came, Michele was, his vision or dream in Kapiti was that he could have a restaurant. And he came to our first Kapiti event, I remember. His vision and dream was to have the best Sicilian/Italian restaurant in the Kapiti coast. And yet when he came, he had pretty much everything in his head.
Yep.
And now we've eaten at that restaurant. It's one of the most sought after restaurants. And yet he's now got a staff of most probably 10. But at the time it was just him knocking on doors, which was, I guess, a little bit like me knocking on doors at the beginning. So there's two that are in the food industry, but then there's Michael in Auckland, and he does business, not compliance, but actually making sure that you have business continuity.
Yep.
We have a number of attendees in different centres that are bookkeepers and accountants.
Yep.
We have a number of craft. We have property, we have Airbnb. Just in that few, that's most probably about a minute, talking about a raft of different businesses that grow out of
the things that you
the attendees at the business school.
Oh no, that's great. And yeah, you mentioned the growing of the business, and do you guys deal with wealth for the owners themselves? Because sometimes what I find in my practice, I'd come across people where they've built this business and they've chucked everything into it, their time and their money, and they come to a retirement age and they think that they're going to sell that business and that's going to be their retirement nest egg. And in many cases, it's they're a bit disappointed. So, do you guys deal with this is your
Short
business,
answer.
but you got to look at your life as well. How do you do that?
So the short answer is no.
Right.
What we want the business owner to do is get the business off the ground.
Yep.
So quite often we're dealing with the core,
Yep.
which is how do we make the business work? How do we get it off the ground? What is it that you need to know to make sales? And as you know yourself, you're not selling something to someone. You don't have a business, right?
Exactly.
And so that's our core,
Yep.
that we want to make sure that the business owner feels comfortable and confident that they can do that. As they grow the business, like we always recommend, don't think that you can do everything to do with tax yourself,
Yep.
as an example. And so we always recommend bookkeepers or accountants, whatever that person feels most comfortable with. And out of that advice, things will grow. On our compliance day, we have the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment call in,
Yep.
and they've been with us since day one. We have the Business Mentors New Zealand, so they've been with us since day one as well. And so we surround the individual business owner with connections to the local business networks.
Yep.
And if I was to talk about, as an example, Business Hawke's Bay or the different councils around the country, Hastings District Council, all of those councils have Napier City Councils, they have economic development agencies, and you get places like Te Puna Kokore, they also have business advisors, so surrounding the business owner with a raft of different opportunity to find support as well. The Ministry of Social Development, they've backed us for the last 2.5 years, because they want to see a difference made in the community, and for people who often don't get a chance. And so we believe that part of our job is to connect our attendees with the local eco-business system, and so that they can always reach out and always feel confident that someone will always want them to succeed.
That's great. It is great. So with the, you've got guys and girls attending, and guys, I guess being guys, you always just be going for the big thing, and ladies may get into trouble, but just in general, they're more nurturers. So when both groups are going out with their business and they're planning, do you find like the guys are going, yep, we're going to make, like in our first year, $500,000, and the ladies are will be conservative? And do you find that, how do you like tone them down, and do you find that the ladies always do better?
So the answer to that is no. What we do is make sure that everybody operates on an equal footing, that everybody understands the risks and rewards. And we always work on the basis that nurturing in business and understanding who your customers are and looking after them is by far the greatest thing that you can do for your customers. But we're not your normal business school, so we also talk about how can your business make a difference in the community. And by that I mean, as an example, it's really important to listen to understand, not listen to reply. And so in that space of listening, how many lives could you save? And so New Zealand has a high rate of suicide, both in our youth and in our older people, and COVID hasn't helped that. And so in our business school, we talk about how you can use your business for good, and that sometimes just listening to one customer could actually mean that they go with a different attitude. They might tell other people about your business, but it's because you're listening to understand. But what is important in your whānau, in the community, is by listening to understand, the likelihood is that you could be seen as a support mechanism for people that are troubled, that people have depression, that people that have a need just for someone to talk to. And so one of the things that's important for us is that we have businesses that are looking, willing, and want to use their business growth to make a difference in the community. And why wouldn't you?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So it's kind of answered your question in a roundabout way,
Yes.
but we treat women and men in our course as equal. And what I can tell you is that every individual business owner has a vision about how they will grow the business, and so our job is to support them to be their best.
Yeah, I wasn't. I understand that you do treat them all equally. I was more getting to.
And I understood your question.
Yeah, the guys will be like more bravado, and they want to make big profits, but there's just a lot of things to do. Whereas, ladies would.
And we don't find that.
Oh, you don't find
No, not at all.
That's good.
Yeah, no, it
really
is,
good.
and it's because they're starting out their business.
Yeah.
Because they have a vision and a dream. But we do major reality checks during the course. It's like, just don't. Please remember that you are crawling before you walk, before you run, and jumping that process. That's not helpful.
Yeah. And so you guys have come up from Wellington, and so in the Hawke's Bay. So what else are you doing in Hawke's Bay and in Hastings? Because I know your course was there was an online component, and now they are doing face-to-face. So will you be doing more of those in Hastings? And what are you looking forward to, your next programs?
So what's coming up next? Some really interesting opportunities. So yes, we will be back. We always come back for follow-up workshops where we work with the different councils and with the economic development agencies. And we noticed that even here, we've been so grateful for Business Hawke's Bay and also our other sponsors for making sure that we could be here. We're running in Kapiti Coast. We're running in Te Kaha, which is up near Whakatane. And we are also running in Auckland. The whole thing for us is how can we help New Zealand's economic and regional development to grow, and at the same time how can we increase the confidence and capability of our attendees. So there are two outcomes. One is supporting economic growth, and the other is supporting the individual to be their best to support that economic growth. So and sometimes they get lost in translation because you're focused on the small business owner, but in fact it's also about regional economic development.
Right, okay, no, that's good. So if there's people in Hawke's Bay that want to get in touch with you, or even someone from a different region that would want to invite you and your team to start up in their area, how would they get in touch with you?
And so really easy. We have a website, rebelbusinessschool.nz. rebelbusinessschool.nz, or they can email us at hello@rebelbusinessschool.nz. And I've got to say, we've had such good feedback about the migration or the rebrand that we did to Rebel, and a lot of that is to acknowledge the rebels that are all around New Zealand and even in this radio show here.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much, Tony, for coming along and sharing the work of the Rebel business. Yeah, appreciate your time and sharing all your experiences. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in to Money Talks here on Radio Kidnappers. So this is Stephen Diedricks from Taxal, your local and national accountant. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.